Welcome to episode 3 of Off the Lip. It's an opportunity to get behind some amazing surfers around our southwest and into the UK. And today we're going to have an incredible conversation with an unbelievably passionate surfer who I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the last year. Welcome to the sofa, a surfer from South Africa. She's come all the way over and is currently residing here in the UK. She's from Ballito in Salt Rock in KwaZulu-Natal, and I want to welcome to the sofa on Off the Lip, Tammy Smith. Welcome.
Thanks.
So good to have you on here. We obviously have got to know each other over the last year, but for today, I really wanted to explore a part that I haven't really had a huge amount of opportunity to talk to you. Your journey from WQS surfing all the way into big wave surfing and getting behind the mindset of what it really takes to ride big waves. So thank you for coming on to the show, and I can't wait to really dive into it. Are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Have you been
Thanks
getting
for
some
having
wave?
me.
Oh, you're welcome. Have you been getting some waves over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, on and off some waves, battling a couple of injuries, but been glorious weather and yeah, been getting some waves.
Certainly feels like springs in the air, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So, we mentioned you grew up in Ballito in South Africa, okay? A real surfy town right on the beach. You know, similarities to Bude in terms of a surf culture that it has there. Tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up as a surf grom in Ballito.
Yeah, so funny thing is that obviously this is the north coast of Cornwall and Ballito Salt Rock's the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. Similarities of, I feel like here has a little bit of power compared to other places around the UK. I compare Salt Rock Ballito to Hawaii. It's like a really grindy wave. Like when a swell comes through, it's a real groundswell. And really heavy. A lot of them are like sand bottom, like point breaks or beach breaks. But so much power compared to the only thing to compare it to is Hawaii. But yeah, it's been interesting. The wave quality in the UK is much better than I had ever anticipated. So that was a pleasant surprise after moving here 4.5 years ago.
You obviously have had an incredible career as a surfer. We're going to get into that, but I want to go back to your roots in terms of who were your inspirational surfers, who got you into the water as a grom back in South Africa?
Yeah, my dad got me into the water. He was like a pro lifesaver, a true waterman, diving, surfing, very involved in like the lifesaving club, and he was really keen for me to be a surfer. I shied away from it. I was always really into sports, but shied away from surfing, and I was always in the water, like diving, swimming, body surfing, you name it. But I had this weird fear of like a surfboard hitting my face. And then all of a sudden I just started standing on a bodyboard, and a couple of the surfers on the beach were like, you can surf a bodyboard, like cutting across and almost starting to do little top turns, and they're like lip lining little floater. Like, no, you honestly, you got to surf. And one of the local guys named Sydney Bollinger, he is a really talented surfer. He came around that evening after seeing me on a bodyboard, standing on a bodyboard, and he was like, he has a surfboard, please surf. And it took me a little while to get it. I was just like still standing on my bodyboard. Always went on a bodyboard with no fins or flippers. And then my parents got me a surfboard for my 14th birthday, but I actually wanted a trick bike, like a BMX with pegs. That's all I wanted. So I was really mad when they got me a surfboard. Told them they had wasted their money. What a brat. But eventually I got into it, and literally I made the decision day one, and I was like, this is it. I'm going to be a professional surfer. Which is quite interesting, and I had like a strong acceleration into the sport. So, but I was always in the water, so it's, yeah, although I started like pretty late, I only started at 14. I think officially started surfing at 14. I was always in the water, and I had that like grounding of like, doing nippers and ocean safety, and I knew how, like, it was in me.
You had those kind of water sort of roots from your father's surf life saving, and just understanding the way in which we can kind of get out back and how we can navigate through water. It just comes, doesn't it, with that understanding of the ocean from growing up by the beach.
Yeah, I think that's the like most important thing. Like, rather than get them in the like standing on a board early, it's like just the grounding of like how the ocean actually moves, and how you can move with the ocean is the most beneficial thing.
Without a doubt. I remember talking to Pete Ash, who is father of Ruben and Joss Ash. And he said when Ruben was a little kid in the water, he'd even bring some of the bath toys that they played in the water in the bath into the sort of shore break. And just the kid being really calm in the water around that environment made Ruben so much more relaxed in the sea, which is a really kind of clever way of trying to just get kids to feel comfortable in the water, just playing in the water. So inspiration, we can talk about your father. He was a phenomenal person in your life. And you kind of move through into a surfing career. So you get first into kind of like the WQS, and I know that you were a real kind of like battler on the WQS, competing around the world. Tell me about some of the sort of like fondest memories you had from the WQS as you moved on into your professional career.
Well, to be honest, like, I know I was pro surfer, but sometimes I feel like I need to say a disclaimer. Like, I feel like I'm a little bit of a has been, never was been. Um, yes, I was a pro surfer, but I feel like I was in it in like the optimum time. So action sports was absolutely booming in the early 2000s. Like, there's a lot of money getting thrown, like all those like, those Nike deals, and yeah, there was like just a lot of things happening. Um, and I did have a very fortunate career where I got to travel the world for very long. For about 6 or 7 years on the WQS. I think my favorite memories were any trip to Hawaii. I would make sure I'd do Hawaii every year, and Hawaii would always be about 2 to 3 months. But any of those trips to Hawaii were absolutely phenomenal. Um, and then some of my free surfing trips, actually in between the QS, were some of my favorites as well. Like, did a little trip. We actually worked on some like reality TV show thing in Reunion Island, and any of my trips to the men's Hawaiis, or Bali and all those things with like a couple friends, like on the downtime in between contests. That's probably my fondest memory.
Those atolls around the Mentawais and stuff, they're just the waves of dreams. And they were the posters I had. I don't know if you, when you were a kid, on my walls in my bedroom, some of those waves like Lance's Right and Macaronis. Yeah. And I've still yet to go out there. I think one day I'm going to save up those pennies and get out there. But those waves are just idyllic, world-class, perfect waves. Yeah. They're getting more busy perhaps than when you surf them, Tammy, but still, they're amazing places that you've been to.
Yeah, I think they're still worth a trip. Like, it's like when a wave breaks there, it's not a droplet out of place. It looks like every droplet is in place. When I went, I couldn't afford a boat trip. So we did a land camp, but it was before land camps were a thing. So you actually stay with locals. There was a local family, mama and papa. I don't know their real names, but that's just what we called them. And they just had like a hostel kind of thing on Lance's Right. And then back then, there was no, I think there's a road now, but you had to do a like 45 to an hour guided hike through the jungle to get to the left. So yeah, it was quite fun experience. We went actually just after the tsunami. My brother went for relief work there, and he phoned and just said like, Dad, you need to get Tammy out here ASAP. We're living on land. It's all cool. Things have settled down now. And so, yeah, I got my sponsors to agree. They actually said if you win junior and senior SA champs in the same year, we'll send you to Indo for as long as you want. So that's what I
did. You're like having a little bit of an incentive and a challenge. Yeah. I'm going to do that. Since getting to know you, Tammy, I feel that, yeah, when you get the bit between your teeth, you won't stop at anything until you can get to that, achieve those things. It's interesting you mentioned back before about the fact that some of your favorite location to go to was Hawaii. And it seems to me perhaps that was something calling to you, because we know that Hawaii has always been known as the proving grounds. It's the waves of consequence. This is where sometimes it all comes down to, on the Challenger Series, like at Sunset, those guys having to try and be able to get onto the WCT now. It's those big events that they've got to get big points for. So you're out in Hawaii. Talk to me about some of those waves that you've ridden and what that experience of maybe trying to infiltrate yourself as a woman into some very heavy lineups with some big crowds and also some big kind of like personalities. What was it like?
Um, well, yeah, Hawaii is just it's there's a reason it's surfing's mecca. It's a 7 mile miracle. You just go there and it's just like you feel all the surf history and um people were very actually welcoming there. I got pretty lucky there. To be honest, at Pipe is just Pipe and it's such a small takeoff zone. And it's quite intimidating and I did do a lot of sessions out there, but I never actually got a really good one. I got a good couple at Off the Wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like just close out barrels, um which I was happy with, and really just for like some barrel shots and that. I did get a couple there, but I didn't get and nothing that I came out of or impressive, but um I didn't really get any at Pipe, but I'd always make sure I spent a lot of time at Sunset, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, you mentioned Off the Wall, Tammy, and surfing off the wall. Did you see recently Lucas's recent clip at Off the Wall?
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. That's a career wave right there. I think that's what everyone's striving for.
That wave was just insane, because at that moment, John was paddling out in the WCT into his heat. He's going to be only doing the event in Pipe before he has the season off, and there was more noise coming from the Rip Curl house of Lucas's wave on
Yeah.
Off the Wall, which was literally just to the left of him as John was paddling out. I mean, to be able to take the thunder away from the three-time world champion John's pretty insane, isn't it?
And to have that wave in front of everyone, which is must the vibe after that must have been so high for him.
I bet he didn't sleep. I literally don't think he's been on cloud nine ever since. Back to Hawaii, and we're gonna. You said Sunset was a great wave. You had some experiences. You wanted to try and surf out there as much. Did you get to go over to Waimea and ride it as it sort of picked up in the bay?
Yeah, I rode Waimea a few times. So back then, um, there wasn't the women weren't invited to Eddie, but there was an invite list for Waimea and a contest period for Waimea, but it was later season, like March area, so March time. So it was a bit late in the season and it never actually ran, but I was always on the invite list um, for that contest. So, which it wasn't the Eddie, but it was still an event at Waimea. So as much as I could when I was there, I'd try surf that wave. Um, yeah, I did have a couple waves there, but probably not as many big waves as I have had in South Africa.
Yeah, you're saying so. You can kind of see that as your career was moving towards perhaps an ending in the WQS on your shortboard. Do you feel that that was when you started to dedicate more time to riding big waves, or were they still hand in hand with each other?
Well, no, to be honest, I always thrived in more solid waves because of where I'm from. So if Belito is a really barreling, hollow wave, and much like, almost like, I guess when it's really heavy, sometimes like Off the Wall or something like that, but just not reef bottom, it's sand bottom. So I was always gravitated towards that, and naturally, I did quite well in more solid surf, and it was what I was drawn to, and I never actually felt like I'd surfed anything big enough. Um, I'd thought whenever I saw big waves, I'd go out, but I'd never been exposed to like really big waves or like open water spots. Um, I did obviously paddle Waimea a few times, and then when I was sometime on the QS, I paddled Sunset, but South African Sunset, which is a wave just outside of out to sea from Komaki. So it's the other side of the mountain from Dungeons. It's definitely a wave of consequence, and I paddled probably when I was about 18, 19, I think. I went out with a big wave charger called Ian Armstrong. He's like a legend in South Africa. And I got some waves then, but I don't really know. My sponsors were too amped on the whole big wave scene. Then they were really like, my contract was really for the QS incentive of, you know, doing well on the QS and competing. And then, yeah, I would always, I hadn't kind of fulfilled my big wave dreams as yet. And then the contest scene kind of slowly fizzled out for me. And then I actually made the decision to stop in 2010, stop competing because I wanted to study. I had this like desire that I had this like kind of itch that I needed to study and I needed to get some sort of a backing. And then I went and studied, and yeah, a couple things happened in my life where basically I stopped surfing. I lost my dad, which is like always a big motivator for me, and some personal things. And I decided not to. I just worked on super yachts, tried to pay off my student loan, and I would surf when I'd go home on holidays. But there's probably like 4 years that I didn't really surf much at all. And I made the decision that I wanted to move home, and at end of 2015, and I needed something to find my love for surfing again. And I knew big wave surfing was it. And I gave Twiggy Baker a call, and I said, could you take me under your wing? You know, I want to surf some big waves? And he's just like, basically, like only Twiggy can says no.
Thanks.
No, he didn't say no. He just said, like, you got to be comfortable that you can take yourself out there and make yourself safe and keep yourself safe. So you got to be fit enough, strong enough, and put in the work. Anyways, he helped me with boards, and he let me know when there was a few swells. And yeah, and I really liked the sound of that. I was like, actually, I don't need anyone. Like, I got to make sure that I'm safe. I got to have confidence in my abilities and my strength. So I started doing the work, and I moved home back to South Africa, but I was living in Salt Rock. So it's a 2-hour flight to Cape Town. That's just kind of on the pulse on when the big waves were hitting Cape Town. And I would just fly anytime there was a swell, and I started getting some footage together. So I got some footage together, and then I started hearing rumors that there was going to be women's big wave events, and Paige Arms and Bianca Villalanti, and Andrea Muller and Kiala Kennelly, and all those names that have been absolutely grinding for years, much longer than I had like done all this groundwork, that I've done all that work with Mavericks, getting a Mavericks contest, which only kicked off afterwards.
So you mentioned the girls like Kiala Kennedy and Paige Alms, and those girls that they're sort of driving forward in their own kind of areas of big wave surfing. But at the moment, nothing was coming together with the girls being put into any events. And so they were all doing it independently, weren't they?
Yeah, they were absolutely charging. And yeah, obviously those women are looked up to them so much. And Paige and I were really good friends. We had done some of the QSs and that together, and been friends over the years. And anyways, I had gone back and forth to Cape Town and gathered some footage, and Twiggy had made me a board, or he had he doesn't actually shape them, but he designs them. And so I got one of his twig boards, and he was really helpful. And I gathered some footage together, and I heard some rumors that there was going to be a Jaws event, or was going to be in Mexico. So I started putting my feelers out, and I started submitting footage, and I emailed Peter Mill. I think he was like the big wave commissioner at the time, and emailed Peter Mel and said, oh, this is my footage and I want to be involved and blah, blah, blah. And just kept on putting my feelers out. I think it really kind of helped because I'd like kind of established some sort of a name of doing the QSs a few years prior. And I was on the alternate list. I was like number 7th on the alternate list for Jaws, which I was still happy with. That was a achievement in itself for me.
Just to be considered that you're going to go there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you got these people like Paige Arms and Carla Kennedy and all, and Bianca and everyone that have been doing the work for so long. I felt like, oh, I need to do a lot more work before getting involved. So I was just happy to be on the alternatives, to be honest. And then all of a sudden I was on the alternate list, and a month later it goes amber. So how the big wave surfing scene works, it goes amber, and I think that's kind of means that they can make the call in like 96 hours and then, or 72 hours, and then basically it goes green alert and you've got just over 48 hours to
all
get
system
there.
go.
Yeah.
Get your flights, get there.
It takes 48 hours to get to Hawaii from South Africa. It's like the furthest we can fly. So it goes green, and I've just started a career in environmental management at that time. And if I'm now going to explain to my boss that potentially I'm going to be flying to Hawaii tomorrow or today. So, yeah, anyways, I had done some pre-work with my boss, and I had actually printed out the alternate list and printed out the whole thing. And I made him, it sounds pretty shameless, but I had printed out a canvas of me on a big wave and I'd put it in his office.
Psychological manipulation. I love that.
And I'd put it in his office. It sounds so shameless now when I repeat this, but that's what I'd done. And anyways, it worked because the day I told him, and I said, so they called green on the contest, but I'm still number 7th on the alternate. There's so many people ahead of me. I was like, no one's going to pull out because, it's Jaws. It's the first female big wave contest on the big wave tour. So I just start hassling. I said, whatever happens, if I get a slight chance, I'm coming. Even if it's say from about 4. So I make the decision, if I get up to 4th on the alternate list, I'm going. And I email and I tell Peter Mel this, and then he says, great, you still like 6th or 7th. And then slowly people start dropping off, and then he let me know. I think I got the email at about 3:00 in the morning that was like, oh, Tammy, actually you could get an event now, but it's too late for you to get there. And I said, no, don't worry about that, you saved my spot, I'll get there. So it was really tight in getting there, and a friend was a travel agent who had to make a plan, but didn't even go into work. But I just said to my boss, I'm so sorry, going to Hawaii. Like, that's all he heard from me, is like basically a text message. And I said, if I'm flying all the way there, I'm not wasting my time. I'm also going to stay 2 months. And I didn't know I was going to come back to a job or not. So I said, I'll take my laptop and I'll work from there. And this was pre-COVID, so it was still like working from home wasn't that. Anyways, I wasn't spending all that money flying from South Africa to Hawaii and not staying there at least 2 months. So anyways, I get there, I fly there last minute. I had to get my boards from Cape Town to Durban Airport. My friends were missioning, driving them, got them on a plane. They arrived in the afternoon. I had to repack my boards from like the cargo area, pack my boards, like buying big wave board bags I didn't have because my boards were just all in Cape Town, and things that I didn't own, like impact suits yet. I hadn't had any of that stuff or inflation vests.
Had you ever used them?
I had never used that.
So you were going there without even learning how to use the safety equipment that was going to keep you alive.
Yeah, and I didn't even have it, so I wasn't going to use it. So in my mind, I was just paddling Jaws because I'd paddled dungeons and somewhere without prior, which I didn't want to do because I want to use the safety equipment that's available, but I didn't have it. Actually, a friend of mine, Leanne Curran, had made a plan to get me a Quicksilver one, but South Africa Postal Service is not reliable and it got lost in the mail. So then she had to organize me another one, but that hadn't got to me in time yet. And so I get on the plane, very excited, not knowing that if I'm going to make it. So there was a potential, I think it was they could run on the Wednesday afternoon. If they ran on the Wednesday afternoon, I would have made it, or they were going to run on the Thursday morning. So I was flying there not knowing if I was going to be in the event or not. So it would have been pretty disappointing if that happened. So I arrived in Hawaii early hours of the morning prior to the event. Probably got to WSL has everything like sorted. It's really well organized. And someone picked me up from the airport. I got to the place I was staying, and I hadn't actually seen Jaws ever before or been to Maui. I'd been to Oahu, but I hadn't been to Maui. And I arrived at my place early hours in the morning, take my board out, start getting everything ready so I can have a couple hours sleep before the event. And the tail of my board is like totally broken almost. No. And I'm just like duct taping it up. It was a bit of, like, looking back, it was a bit of a nightmare. But I just wanted to be out there. And yeah, so then surfed the event. I got a good cleanup set on my head on the morning of the event. Paddled out for my heat. Going like the boat on the way to Jaws, it's probably, I can't actually remember, maybe a 40-minute boat ride from the harbor. And I just remember just like waiting. All of a sudden you turn the corner and you can see like Jaws from side on angle and these most massive waves I've ever seen. I was thinking, oh no, what have I done? But yeah, also a bit of that, and then a lot of the excitement, and then like trying to, okay, I need to get ready, and I need an impact suit and I need an inflation vest, and I managed to get both those things. I think Laura Inova was like borrowing Josh Kerr's stuff or something, and she hooked me up with inflation. And then remember, I didn't have enough canisters, and then I only had one canister because canisters were quite sparse on the boats and that. So I had one canister and I had an impact suit. So I felt like a little bit better and a little bit more sorted. Still had a bit of a bust up board, but I made a plan there. Just really to get it going. To be honest, I got one wave where I stood up and kind of like the offshore was blowing so hard at this point. So I got one wave which kind of started dropping down and like blew off the back. But then I didn't get another wave the whole heat, which was quite disappointing. All the girls sent it so hard and did so well. Paige Arms won the event. She's an absolute hero. I was actually staying with Paige Arms after the event and I hung around for about a month or so. But there were no waves. We surfed a lot and got some waves, but there's no waves at Jaws. And then I ended up going to Oahu, hanging out on the North Shore, and then went to Mavericks. Well, I went to California and hung around there to see if Mavericks was going to work, but then it didn't work. But I just surfed and hung out around that way. But yeah, it was a really good trip, and definitely, I'm not sure that I'll surf Jaws again now. I feel like I would like to think I would, but probably wouldn't. Like, yeah.
That's an incredible story, Tammy, and it makes my hairs on my hands stand up. Just your blazing bravado that you are just going there. You are committed. You are blinkered. There's nothing going to get in your way to get out there. And your first impression of seeing it, that I can imagine, just, I can't imagine, because I would not even be on the boat. I'd be strapped on that land, watching from the cliffs down below, just going, oh my God. And I remember actually watching that contest on the, when it was live streamed. I remember Paige winning. And I didn't know you at the time, and to know that you were out there that day, the wind was so strong offshore.
It was so
Like
strong.
even the men, as they were dropping in, they were being blown off, and
Yeah.
obviously some of them weigh slightly more than some of the female competitors. It is known as the Windy Island. It's the windiest island in the whole Hawaiian chain. Maui's known for its wind. It's a crazy place, and for you to surf there is just mind blowing. And to just paddle in, and I know you say that you only caught one and you were blown off, but you were out there. That's more than anyone else that I know will ever be able to say is something that they've achieved in their surf career. So credit to you, girl. You got some serious guts. So you were saying about the preparation and on the boat as you were heading over to the contest. Talk to me about how you prepare your mindset to paddle out at waves of consequence. How do you get in the zone?
Uh, I think it's just all about calming. Like naturally as surfers, you always feel like pretty amped. Well, I do. Like
Me too.
I see waves and like, you know, the butterflies come and heart rate goes up but it's all about slowing that stuff down. Yeah. And for me, it's like not too much expectation on myself. It's because or that I think about when I'm about to surf big waves or, you know, have any sort of waves of consequences, like, "Oh, I could get the best wave of my life." So just like calming that all down and trying to calm your mind down, doing your breathing exercises. Um, yeah, I think that's how I get myself into the mindset. Yeah, just calming the mind, really.
You talk about calming your mind, but obviously there's times where you are going to get the biggest beating of your life when you're out in those situations. Can you remember any particular wipeouts where you just thought, this is the heaviest wipeout I've ever experienced?
Yeah. Actually, at sunset in South Africa, I got one where I remember some people talking about it before, but like, you know, when you're getting wiped out, like holding your limbs in, I was always thinking, oh, I've never really felt that. But it's only because I hadn't been worked hard enough, probably. But there's one wave hit me, and I think I still had a little bit of air in my. I hadn't been able to deflate my inflation vest enough when this wave hit me, and yeah, I just got ragdolled. Um, I just remember like arms and like legs flinging. I thought, oh, I'm going to come out of this with an injury. Um, but it is pretty amazing, like getting into the zone where you realize, oh, I'm okay, and being able to talk to yourself in those really scary situations. Yeah.
It's about your mindset. It's about how you process those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hold downs, it's hard to compute how long you're down. I always feel like my hold downs are like 20 seconds and I've been down for like 3 and I pop up and I go, that was heavy. In terms of some of the hold downs you're getting at Jaws or over in Sunset or Dungeons in South Africa, what's the length that you might be under the water without flotation or even with?
I actually don't actually know, to be honest. So if people have asked me that, I've never been able to work it out really. But I have a theory about fear because like people like always. I don't surf big waves because like a macho thing. I surf it just because that's how I get my like the purpose or what feels good um inside of me, and it also keeps, you know, it gives you something to do,
Mm,
something to work towards.
mm.
um but you know that feeling that you get, say you surfing a 2 foot shallow bank and like a little set comes through and it breaks on your head and you like get a fright, you're like, ah, and you bail your board. Like that's fear that you feel when you're like, ah, like feel scared. Like I don't think there's like a degree of fear. I just think it's just fear.
It's just there.
So it's just there. So it doesn't matter if you're surfing 2 foot or 20 foot, you feel fear. Or it doesn't matter if you're slipping off a pavement or falling off a 20-foot lip, it's fear. So why not? You feel that when you like slip off an icy pavement or something, like why don't you just
It's how you process it. It's
Yeah.
how, and you're compartmentalizing that into, it's just fear. It's not a scale. You're
Yeah,
not
I
making,
don't feel like it's a scale.
yeah,
It's just one thing,
it's a
it's
real,
just fear.
it's interesting the way that's the way you see it, and that might be the way many people see it, especially those big wave surfers, and other people may see it differently. I'm going to bring the big wave conversation back home.
Hmm.
UK is known for some incredible big wave spots. I mean, Mullaghmore over in Ireland, over the Irish Sea, is a phenomenally world-renowned big wave spot. Okay, have you been over there? Have you seen Mullaghmore break? Have you ridden it?
I haven't ridden it and I haven't seen it break, but obviously I've watched a lot of footage of it. It's one of those waves that um I don't know if I'll actually ever surf because one, it's a left. I would like to think I could, but I don't know if I could make that takeoff. And it looks amazing, but it also looks like liquid death. Like the same as Nazare, the
Mm.
same thing. It looks like it just looks so scary.
It just goes underwater, doesn't it? That the way it bottoms out as it goes across that ledge, as the takeoff's insane. But then as you watch those, it looks like the water's sucking off the reef back towards the actual
Yeah, and it's
pocket
like
of the wave.
the water's dark
Yeah,
and the sky's usually dark and the wind's usually blowing its guts out. And like if you think of like Jaws, like I saw so many rainbows, like wave rainbows the day I surfed Jaws, like offshore's blowing, there's like a rainbow, and like you get distracted by the beauty and there's like these green cliffs behind you. And I don't know, when you surf those places, those places are real and raw, and there's not much pretty about them. They look amazing. Um, but I did have this idea that we wanted to like move to Ireland at one point because we're thinking about moving to the UK, and Ireland was on my list because it's such a wave-rich place. Um, and I wasn't considering Cornwall at all because the only benchmark I had was back in the day. I think it was a 6-star QS, the Boardmasters, and I used to come there every year. And no offense to the Boardmasters or anything like that, but obviously it was held in summer, so the waves were really small and never really good quality. So that's like the benchmark that I had for Cornwall, and it was very low, just those QS events. And I was like, I'm not moving to Cornwall. So um, Malagmore was, or like Bundoran area was so wave rich. So we thought we are going to move there.
and it didn't work out. It didn't happen. So back in the UK, we've got waves around the UK that have been tested. People have towed. The Cribber is perhaps close to where Boardmasters is held at Fistral. The Cribber is perhaps a renowned UK big wave spot. Have you surfed the Cribber?
Yeah, I have surfed the Cribber once or twice, but nothing of consequence. And it is a fun big wave spot. And to be honest, after I'm a mum now, obviously, but I think that's as like big wavy as I go right now.
Yeah.
Well, right now, maybe once I get my fitness back and get more time in the water again, then that will change. And maybe one day if Senna wants to surf some big waves, that will also change. But right now, I think like the Cribber is like as big wavy as I get.
Yeah. It's not too far away to still get that fix, to still get that feeling that you talk
Yeah.
about, the feeling that you aspire to have, and what makes you feel like, you're alive and you're enjoying those experiences. So there's UK surfers coming through the ranks. We know Cotty from North Devon, who's been over a standout in Nazare and that incredible wipeout when he got detonated by the lip that broke his back and he gets flung so high. We've now got Laura Crane, another surfer from North Devon, who has been out, and they both competed in the Nazare recent Tudor event.
Yeah, she is absolutely charging. I don't know her at all, but I just seen a lot of footage and I look at a lot of the stuff on Instagram and stuff. She's absolutely charging.
She certainly is, and she's leading that UK charge. We've also got Ben Larg, and even Ben Larg's little sister. They're from Scotland. I think they came from the island of Tiree, if I pronounce that correctly, and they're now living up towards Thurso Way. But Ben has really rose as a name on big wave surfing across the whole world in terms of from quite a young age. And now his sister, she was obviously famously in the event and has been seen to have been towing there as well.
Yeah, I got so much respect for the people that tow that wave. It's It's absolutely phenomenal.
Have you had experience, Tammy, of towing yourself?
No, not really. I've done like some tow-ats and stuff, but no, not like big wave towing really.
That's not really interested you. It's more of the passion of paddling into it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if I had a jet ski and stuff, I would be interested, but I've never really been in that situation where I've had a jet ski, and I like the fact, like what Twiggy said to me, like, you got to be fit enough and able enough, and I really respected that advice. And yeah, so I like that whole aspect of paddling big wave surfing, that I can, I don't have to rely on anyone, like especially in the waves like Sunset and Cape Town is a far way out, but I can do that paddle myself. Even dungeons, to an extent, you can kind of make your way out there by yourself somehow. Um, and yeah, I really like that independence factor.
Yeah, there's something you're responsible for yourself. I recently watched a YouTube clip from Nathan Florence, and he'd been out surfing pipe as it went through to Third Reef. Quite a few surfers were getting caught. They'd had boards snapped, and they just couldn't swim in. And he really talked about the fact that if you're going to surf waves of consequence, you've got to be able to get yourself out of those situations. And some of them were calling for water patrol because they just couldn't swim back in. And he said, if you're out there, you've got to be able to handle yourself and look after yourself. So it's about that fitness and
Yeah.
those sorts of areas. And that's really quite true, I think.
So that's why I'd go nowhere near a big wave right now, because I don't have that fitness.
It's all going to come back. Don't you worry. You just had a baby.
Yeah.
You're in that stage, but I'm sure you can get yourself back there. We're coming towards what has been an absolutely amazing interview. There's a couple more questions I had on my list, and we've explored different avenues, which I love about Off the Lip. So what are you currently involved with, apart from your own personal free surfing here, in terms of surfing in Bude and in North Cornwall, where you're currently based?
Yeah, so I've been doing some coaching, obviously, with Bude Wave Riders and their elite squad, which has been really, really inspiring to see, and especially in the last few months, really. Even though we had a little bit of a break over the winter, but I see the kids surfing a lot, and it's just phenomenal, the progression that they have. I wish, I look at them and I see that one or two of the kids, like two of the little girls I've been working with for a little bit longer, and just seeing that progression that I've seen like over the last 2 years is phenomenal. I wish we could keep that upward trajectory like as we get older. I wish I was still progressing in the sport. But yeah, it's been really good doing the coaching with them and seeing some results in contests. Yeah, it's really motivated. It reminds me of my youth growing up.
It's very important for you to give back such a wealth of knowledge that you have to those younger generation, to feed into them. And perhaps, from this crop of young people you're working with, we might have one of the next big wave surfers coming from it and following in your incredible footsteps. So we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and you were saying about a little idea that you had, an idea about perhaps being an inspirational kind of coach and doing a course to bring out women's confidence in riding waves. Talk to me a little bit about that to finish off our incredible episode today.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea. I want to do some with enjoying the coaching of like young kids that potentially want to be professional surfers. There's also another kind of element, and especially moving into motherhood and as well. I have this like desire of like creating a safe space for women to kind of build their confidence in the ocean, because whether it may be, that they want to move from like a protected area like Summerlees, like in the bay, and maybe they want to surf, be more confident in surfing Woodmouth, or maybe they want to surf a Point Break, or it could be that that they want to just learn more about how the ocean works, or that they want to actually start surfing bigger waves. So it doesn't matter. Like, just I want to do a little course on women building confidence in the water. So kind of looking at like rips and tides and using the ocean, as well as things like fitness, and some surf etiquette on that as well, like holding your own in a lineup. And yeah, I just thought it was, I haven't seen anything offered kind of to what I'm imagining it to be like. I've got a couple ideas down on what I want to do throughout. It's probably about 2 or 3 days that I want to do. I want to do maybe like one a quarter or something. So yeah, I haven't seen anything quite like that out there. So I want to create it and create that safe space for women and building their confidence in the ocean.
I think you are an incredible role model, and if anyone wants to listen to the kind of like mantra you have around the way you process fear and riding big waves, I think that could be a really exciting opportunity. So watch this space. We might be able to promote it through our platforms, but also I'm sure it'll be out there. But if you want to follow Tammy, you're under the name of Tammy Smith Haven, is that right, on your Instagram? If anyone wants to reach out and maybe talk to you,
yeah. Tammy Lee Smith Haven.
There we are. That's it. You heard it there. Tammy's on Instagram. We'll try and see if we can post, obviously, if that's okay with you, on our socials when this comes out. And if they want to approach you and perhaps sort of get behind the mindset of what it takes to be confident in big ways, it'd be amazing, because we never know what this country could produce. We are producing world-class junior surfers. Lucas is pushing it out there onto the world tour. But at the moment, we're starting to see our English surfers pushing it out, as we talked about with Cotty and with Laura. Who could be next? It's incredible to think about that.
Yeah, I think that surfing in the UK is probably it looks like the most exciting kind of journey that it's been on. I just, from when I was on the tour, the only person I knew from the UK was Russell Winter, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And Ruben.
Yeah.
Ruben was actually at the first World Juniors I attended in Australia, and I think it was his first World Juniors as well. But yeah, the talent coming out of the UK right now is pretty impressive.
I think when you've got someone driving from the front, such as Lucas and some of our females like Emily, who we had on a couple of episodes ago, they're going to just drag everyone in their coattails, and the younger surfers in our communities and in our towns are going to think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I can dream big. I can be like them. And you certainly have inspired me today, Tammy. I really want to thank you for coming on Off the Lip, episode 3. It's been an absolute blast to have you in here. The journeys you've taken towards getting to some of those events and your experiences, and I really thank you for coming on.
Great, thanks for having me.
Okay, so that is a wrap for episode 3, and Tammy Smith has enlightened us all about the mindset to get into waves of consequence. Thanks to Caravan and Motorhome Club for being our headline sponsors, supporting us throughout this year. It's going to be amazing to have them on board. And don't forget your Surfing England membership that covers you for public liability insurance in case you have an accident riding those big waves. See you all on episode 4, coming soon. I've been running from the wind. I can feel the darkness creeping. I'm Martin Ray, and I'm your host of Off the Lip, brought to you by Surfing England, the national governing body of surfing in England. Thank you to the Caravan and Motorhome Club, our headline sponsor, and to Mora Media House for creating these podcasts.